Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC 306 O'Malley vs. Dvalishvili, or UFC Noche, an ode to Mexican Independence Day, or whatever it was. This fight card, if you're listening to this right now, was essentially a month ago, and I finally got to it because my life is essentially now in order, and I can now focus on finishing these MMA cards. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I had already watched this card, the main event, on the night that it actually happened, but I watched it at a watch party. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you my scorecards from me scoring them independently, and then what I saw watching it live. So before we even get into the scorecards, I just want to point out that when I was watching it live, it was, in terms of the whole theatrics, let me start off there. In terms of the theatrics of just the Mexican Independence Night, I was disappointed for a couple of reasons. One, I was assuming that the entire sphere would be covered with the actual fights, not two small screens accompanied with flying toucans and Aztec imagery. That's the part that really fumbled with my mind a little bit. I didn't give two shits about it. Now, this isn't me trying to shit on Mexican Independence Day. That's not the goal here. I'm just saying that in terms of the iconography, it didn't move me, nor did it influence how I felt about the card. Now, this card was essentially tailor-made for Mexicans, and if you look at it, I believe only one Mexican, if he is Raul Rosas Jr., I believe only one Mexican won on this card, which is hilarious. But beyond that point, I thought it was a great night of fights. A beautiful night of fights that is marred by a multitude of things. One of them being Herb Dean at the very end, which we'll talk about. And then the judging that flipped from really good judging from the prelims to really bad judging. I mean, so bad that I normally don't say this because it comes off a bad way, but it almost felt rigged in a way. And not rigged in the way that you think, but no, in fact, rigged in the way that you think. There are a couple of fights on this card that shouldn't have been scored the way they were scored, and in fact, we'll just jump right into it because I've lost my whole train of thought, and it's late, and this card is super late anyway. So, oh Jesus Christ, okay. So let's start off with the first fight of the night, and that's Rosas Jr. versus Aoriqileng. I had this 30-27 close marker in the second round. I think the second round is very close. I had Rosas Jr. outstriking Aoriqileng by one strike in that round, but we'll get to that. 30-27 for Rosas Jr. on Aoriqileng. In the first round, Rosas Jr. barely outstruck Aoriqileng. He outstruck him by one strike really on the feet, but he had a takedown with ground and pound for about 3 minutes. So that round belongs to him. You go to the second round, where there's two ways I could have wrote this. Close on strikes with the edge to Raul Rosas Jr. Or Rosas barely outstruck Aoriqileng by one strike. I'm going to stick with he barely outstruck Aoriqileng by one strike. Rosas Jr. was up on strikes. Aoriqileng starts to come back, but he was still outstruck by Rosas by a strike. I put a close marker on it to be objective. All three judges disagreed with me, obviously. That's whatever. Third round, Rosas had two takedowns with ground and pound for 4+ minutes. That's why I have my 30-27. You go to the judges' scorecards. All of them have it the same way. Jauregui V Souza, Ron McCarthy, and Tony Weeks all have it 29-28 for Rosas Jr. They gave the second round to Aoriqileng. Now we get into more interesting fights. Here we go. Now, here's the part where I have to preface this. This is where I entered the party. When I saw this live, the first fight I saw live was Rodriguez versus Osbourne. Watching this originally on TV at the party, I thought Osbourne was robbed. I'll just be honest with you. Again, I did preface, when I was talking at the party, I was saying, oh my God, they robbed him. They're just trying to give it to Rodriguez. But then I said to myself, I have to go home and score this, obviously, by myself and in silence. But watching it back, they were correct. It was the correct decision, and I scored it correctly as well. I had this 29-28 for Rodriguez. First round for Osbourne. Last 2 rounds for Rodriguez. You go to the first round. If I can find it here, Rodriguez had some ground and pound. Okay, Rodriguez had some ground and pound, but that was later in the round. But he got dropped at the start of the round. He got dropped and outstruck with ground and pound from Osbourne. This round belongs to Osbourne. You go to the second round. Osbourne had some shots from a reversal at the very end of the round, but that doesn't matter because Rodriguez had a takedown with ground and pound for about 2+ minutes in this round. That round belongs to Rodriguez. And then the third round, it was close on the feet. This is where, watching this at the party, in my head, I was like, oh, Osbourne won the third round. That definitely wasn't the case. It was close on the feet. Both of them had a takedown. Here's the interesting bit. So it's close on the feet throughout the entirety of this round. Osbourne gets a takedown kind of early in the round, but the strikes are close. The strikes are essentially neck and neck. Rodriguez gets a takedown at the very end of the round, and then just starts punching. And the correct way to score that is both of them have a takedown, and the strikes now lean in Rodriguez's favor. So he gets a takedown, and he closes the round with ground and pound. While Osbourne is active on his back, none of the strikes are really landing. The strikes that are landing are really from Rodriguez. So that's where you get the 29-28. You go to the judges' scorecards now. And they're a little confusing. So Adelaide Bird and Ron McCarthy have the same scorecard. They give the first round to Osbourne. They give the second round to Rodriguez, but they give him a 10-8. I'm going to repeat that. They give him a 10-8. Now, I want to point out that in this second round, Osbourne at the end had a reversal and had some shots from the reversal. But Rodriguez had to take it with some ground and pound for 2+ minutes. This wasn't intense ground and pound that needed a 10-8. These are really, really bad 10-8s. When I heard it on the screen, I heard 29-27, and I was doing the numbers in my head. I'm like, nigga, where's the 10-8 coming from? I shouldn't have said that. Where's the 10-8 coming from? Where the hell's the 10-8 coming from? I then watch it back, and I'm looking at the scorecards, and I'm thinking to myself, you goobers gave him a 10-8 for no reason. There was no need for a 10-8 at all. At all. In fact, I'm just so stunned that they gave him a 10-8, but honorable mention to Adelaide Bird and Ron McCarthy for having a correct scorecard. That is also wrong. And then they give the last round to Rodriguez as well. Junior Jauregui V Souza has a 29-28. His scorecard reflects mine. Just an unnecessary scorecard. And this is the theme of the night, where it's almost as though some of these judges are really sprinkling some secret sauce on these scorecards. It's so disgusting that it just makes you very skeptical. that's as hard as I'll lean into it. You go to the second fight. This fight, not only was it amazing, Zellhuber versus Ribovic. Watching this live was even more amazing. But not even that. I was screaming on the top of my lungs when this decision was read because I felt as though they were going to rob Ribovic. When Bruce Buffer started saying, this judge scores it this way, I knew in the back of my head I was telling myself, there's no way. There's no way they could steal this from Ribovic. Forget the numbers they put on the screen, because I knew the numbers. I was watching it. And then I rewatched it. The numbers they put on the screen, while people like to bring up strike numbers in totality, you can't do that. You have to break it down round by round and what happened. That's just how you have to do it objectively. But even when they put it all together, there's no way you can look at those numbers and go, Zellhuber won. Let's get into the fight. Zellhuber versus Ribovic. This is a 30-27. This is a 30-27. You can't, objectively speaking, you can't find a round for Zellhuber. But some judges did, so whatever. 30-27 for Ribovic. You go to the first round. Ribovic outstruck Zellhuber by 6 strikes. He's outstriking him in this round. The thing that makes this maybe confusing for some people is that they're both landing pretty frequently on each other, so maybe you can get lost in the strikes. I didn't. He was outstriking him well enough. He outstruck him by 6 strikes. You go to the second round. Ribovic was outstriking him definitively, even better in this round. He outstruck him by 9 strikes, Ribovic did, on Zellhuber. And then you go to the third round, which is the cool round. We start off with Zellhuber just dropping Ribovic pretty early in the round. And then the tide turns, where Ribovic lands a really nice shot on Zellhuber, stumbles him. Essentially, he drops him. They don't count it as a drop on the strike numbers, on the stats, but he drops him. Well, it's not really a drop, actually. It's a stumble. He stumbles him, but it's kind of... The amount of strikes that he landed in this round, and the fact that he made him stumble and fall with the strikes, it's essentially equivalent to a drop, but that's neither here nor there. Ribovic stumbles Zellhuber, and he outstrikes him by, I counted, 57 strikes. I didn't count the whiffed strikes that DC was screaming in commentary about, oh my god, Zellhuber landed 1,000, he threw 1,000 strikes but only landed 2 of them. I didn't count those. 57 strikes he outstruck him. Okay? Fuck whether or not he dropped him. Even if Zellhuber doesn't fall down from when he's getting outstruck, Ribovic would still win this round. So there's that. You go to the judges' scorecards where they almost robbed him. We go with Aoriqileng. Aoriqileng, he gives the last 2 rounds to Ribovic. He gives the first round to Zellhuber. Honorable mention to Aoriqileng. We're just going to say that. Saul Diamante, he gives the first 2 rounds to Zellhuber. Guys, you can't make this shit up. He gives the first 2 rounds to Zellhuber. He gives the last round to Ribovic. Yes, the last round belongs to Ribovic. The first round to Zellhuber, I'll give some leeway, but it's wrong. The second round for Zellhuber is absolute nonsense. And I know there were some scorecards that were saying, like, oh, there's 2 rounds for Zellhuber. I don't know. Maybe it's just the UFC noche that made people score the wrong way. But this is bad. This is bad. If Adelaide Bird scored it this way, we'd all be screaming. But she didn't. Saul Diamante did. Honorable mention to Saul Diamante. It's a shitty scorecard. And then Chris Lee, again, him and Aoriqileng have the correct scorecards. It's just slightly wrong. First round to Ribovic. Second round to Zellhuber. Honorable mention. No. He outstruck him better in this round than he did in the first round. And then he gives the last round to Ribovic as well. So there you have it on that. Shit like that just made no sense. It made no sense at all. Go to the next honorable mention, and that's Ortega versus Lopes. 30-27 for Lopes. Nothing, no more, no less. Henry from Oswald or whatever. 30-27. First round, Lopes drops and outstrikes Ortega by 9 strikes. He also had some ground and pound. Lopes did. Second round, Lopes outstrikes Ortega by 5-6 strikes. And then he starts to slow down. It's an interesting one. In the second round, he starts to slow down. Even when I was watching this live, me and a friend were talking about it, and I was like, he better not slow down, because in some past fights, I can't remember the fight at this point. Oh, right, the Ige fight. He starts to slow down. And even in the second round, he kind of starts to slow down a little bit. In fact, Ortega, in parts of 3 and in the end of 2, he starts to, slowly gain on the strike numbers Ortega does on Lopes, but again, Lopes outstrikes him by 5-6 strikes in this round. In round 2, in round 3, Lopes outstruck and drops Ortega by about 21 strikes. Boom, there you have it. You go to the judges' scorecards, and people want to be cute. People want to be different. I don't understand it. Junior Camillo saw the amount of their scorecards reflect mine, 30-27, and then Mike Bell. The man who can't stay away from 10-8s ruining. If there was a time to not use a 10-8, it's UFC No J, where Grasso and Shevchenko are fighting, and Shevchenko was robbed of her championship because of a 10-8. But that's fine. These guys are stubborn. It's cool. 30-26, Mike Bell gives to Diego Lopes. He gives a 10-8 in the first round. I'm looking at it, and it's just a routine. I'm assuming it's the vigor in which the strikes were happening, maybe? It's an unnecessary 10-8. We've seen this 40 billion times. Someone gets dropped, they get outstruck. Simple. It wasn't that deep to yield the 10-8. Honorable mention to Mike Bell. That's fucking ridiculous. Grasso versus Shevchenko. The scorecards aren't here. I'll have to find them separately. I'll probably do that right now. Probably give me 1 second. Okay, I found them, and I found the scorecards. So all the scorecards are the same. Ben Cartledge, Eric Colon, and Ron McCarthy all had it 50-45 for Shevchenko. The reason why I brought this up isn't for scorecard purposes. It's because of just narrative purposes and just how the fight was really talked about on commentary and overall. If you quick reminder, if you don't remember the first 2 fights, Grasso wins the first fight. Shevchenko should have won the second fight. And then the third fight, Shevchenko wins, obviously, 50-45. The reason I bring this up is because essentially the narrative, when the first 2 fights played out, the narrative that was being pitched was really, really gross. See, in the first fight, Grasso outstruck Shevchenko 1 round, and then proceeded to get to be outstruck for the rest of that fight, despite Shevchenko getting finished. Same thing in the second fight, where Shevchenko is again outstriking Grasso and outgrappling her for most of that fight. You come to this fight, all right, and we'll start off from the top. In the first round, Shevchenko had a takedown with some ground and pound for about 3 minutes. Not a lot of ground and pound, obviously. That's the critique of the fight. But then again, Grasso isn't the other girls that Shevchenko has faced in the past. This is a scenario where Grasso is a lot more stubborn and active on the bottom. Except she wasn't active to the level that Valentina was versus the Brazilian girl whose name escapes me at the moment. But anyways, Grasso was slightly active on her back, but not active enough to win the round or anything. You go to the second round, where Shevchenko had 2 takedowns with some ground and pound for about 3 minutes. Again, Grasso was slightly active on the bottom. And then the commentary brings up a point of the submission attempts from Grasso that weren't counted. Let's just be straight honest here. None of the submission attempts were in this second round. the her entire arm wasn't even past Grasso's legs. The triangle attempt wasn't in. The Kimura attempt wasn't fully a Kimura attempt, because the moment that Grasso grabbed Valentina's arms, they were immediately blocked and pinned down by Shevchenko's left leg, her left knee. So of course they shouldn't have counted. None of these shouldn't have counted. Now there is a submission attempt that will be counted, but that's later on. You go to the third round. Shevchenko outstruck Grasso on the feet, and she had a takedown with some ground and pound for about 2+ minutes. You go to the fourth round. Grasso had a submission attempt, the guillotine, really, that wasn't, if we're going to be honest, it wasn't even in. Now, it counts because she had it in for a long time. There are points where Valentina is fighting the hands, but mostly she's not really fighting the hands. She's kind of just biding her time. I mean, I always have most of the time, 99% of the time, when the fighter is punching, the submission isn't in. 90% of the time. Grasso had a submission attempt, but Shevchenko had a takedown with some ground and pound for about 3 minutes. Again, Grasso was slightly active on the bottom, but not enough to do anything. Not enough to sway the round in any way. And then Grasso outstruck Shevchenko. She outstruck her in this final round, but Shevchenko had 4 takedowns. Grasso had a takedown as well. Shevchenko got up relatively quickly, but Shevchenko had 4 takedowns. This is her round, and that's it for this fight. Then we go to O'Malley versus Dvalishvili. I was watching this live, and when I was watching this live, I was half watching it. Well, no. Let me rephrase it. I was fully watching it, but when it came to the 5th round, I was half watching it. I was kind of talking to a friend. I was whatever. We were all rooting for O'Malley, right? And just to be honest with you, here's the scenario. Here's what really lost me for a second. I had already been, once I saw the Ribovic's scorecard, I had already been influenced that these scorecards are going to come out wonky. Now, I didn't think they were going to come out criminal, but I thought they were going to come out wonky, given if this were close or anything like this. This was not close. You cannot find 5 rounds. You can't find a round. Let me be even more objective. You can't find 2 rounds for O'Malley. You can't find half a round for O'Malley. Yet, I have to go online and see. Again, I'm rooting for him. I have to go online and see everyone talk about 1, 3, and 5, 1, 4, and 5. They're like scraping for rounds. This reminds me of that time where Colby fought Usman the second time, and they were like, "Oh no, you won 3 rounds," and I'm like, "No, I don't." He didn't win 3 rounds. Not only were fans trying to find 3 rounds for O'Malley, some judges found 2 rounds for O'Malley. I'm really, really, really stunned that I was sitting in that seat and I heard them read, and I was expecting a 50-45, maybe a 49-46, maybe. Even that, I don't think, after we're watching this, I don't think that was real. I heard 49-46, and I was expecting to hear 50-45. Instead, I heard 48-47. Guys, where do you find 2 rounds for Mr. O'Malley? You don't. You cannot find 2 rounds for O'Malley. You cannot, and it's fucking gross. It's just so gross. It's so gross that it's evil almost. I was sitting there thinking to myself, they're really trying to churn up these scorecards. They're either trying to churn up the scorecards or they're just really bad judges. and I'm going to lean on the really bad judges. Saul D'Amato, who I haven't looked at his scorecard yet, I will never forget O'Malley versus Pedro Munoz. And Pedro won the first round. You can ask anybody on the planet. Pedro won the first round. O'Malley still to this day goes on a campaign about how he won the first round, even though he proceeded to not land more than, I think, 4 strikes on Pedro Munoz. Saul D'Amato gave him the first round after getting outstruck by Pedro Munoz. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Let's get to the fight, because it's incredible that I heard a 48-47. Start with the first round. Okay. 50-45. Dvalishvili over O'Malley. Dvalishvili outstrikes O'Malley, and he had 2 takedowns. He outstrikes him by 8+ strikes. Most of the strikes came from the clinch. O'Malley starts off slightly outstriking Dvalishvili, and then proceeds to get taken down and get outstruck in the clinch. Those are heavy strikes. These aren't pitter-patter strikes. These are heavy strikes from the clinch, and then gets another takedown. Dvalishvili does. This round belongs to Dvalishvili. There's no like nuance in this round at all. It's not as though O'Malley was heavily outstriking him and then got taken down, like at the end of the round or something. That's not what this is. This is Dvalishvili getting the 2 takedowns and outstriking O'Malley in those transitions, in those circumstances. You go to the second round. Dvalishvili gets a takedown with ground and pound for 3 minutes. Okay, you can't argue that one. You go to the third round, which is the round that they gave O'Malley. Dvalishvili has a takedown, and he outstrikes O'Malley by about 12 strikes. Here's the coincidence. Here's the cute part that I think people are glomming on here, is that Dvalishvili gets a takedown. He outstrikes O'Malley, and then towards the end of the round, O'Malley lands like 4 good strikes on Dvalishvili, and so therefore the round goes to O'Malley. Are you fucking kidding me? This is it's gross. Watching it live, I was like, 48-47 sounds ridiculous. Watching it back, 48-47 sounds criminal. Like, you need to be investigated. I mean, Ron McCarthy's on this? No, he's not. I was about to bring up the Patty thing. Anyways, you go to the fourth round. Dvalishvili has 2 takedowns with ground and pound for 3+ minutes. You can't find a round there. You then go to the 5th round, where this seems to be an argument amongst the minority of O'Malley fans that think he won this fight. Dvalishvili has 2 takedowns with ground and pound and outstrikes O'Malley by 8 strikes. But that's me putting it all together. Essentially, Dvalishvili gets a takedown with some ground and pound. And and he's kind of already outstriking O'Malley. O'Malley starts to come back a little bit in terms of strikes. He comes back in terms of strikes. But then he gets taken down again. And again is still outstruck. Watching it live, because again, in the 5th round I'm half watching it. So you start, I'm watching it from the start, seeing where he gets taken down. I look away, and by the time I come back, it's, and he hurt him with the teep kick. So my perception is, okay, maybe he won the round, blah, 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 blah. No. When you watch this round in full, there's no way that O'Malley wins this last round. Once the second takedown happens, he loses this round. That's all I have to say on this. It's ridiculous. Even if you want to be lenient, 49-46 is the highest you can go. It's the highest. It's the lowest you can go. 48-47 is at that point you have to be investigated. The big controversy of this fight is Herb Dean just saying work. I've always hated this. Except this was like really grotesque. Dvalishvili is working. He's working. In the 5th round, he's working. He's on top of O'Malley. He's landing ground and pound. Yet people still think he won this round. Whatever. He's on top of O'Malley. And he's raining down punches. And you guessed it. Herb is just telling him to work and work and work and work and work. It's bad. It's really fucking bad. That's all I have to say about this fight. That's all I have to say about this card. I thought it was a great card. Really entertaining. Obviously, everyone has a different... Once the last two fights happened, everyone suddenly is like, these fights were boring. But if this were a fight night, or if this weren't UFC Noche, then Dana would feel a lot better about this card. It's really weird how Dana feels about some of these cards, because this is regular MMA. Not every fight has to be a fucking barn burner. And this fight wasn't even bad. This fight wasn't bad. Even the Shevchenko fight wasn't bad. We've seen worse fights. We've seen worse title fights. We've seen way worse title fights. But that's all I have to say about that. I'm finally finished with this card. On to the French card. Thank you all for listening. And God bless.